Welcome to the Hand of Pod. This is the Football Nostalgia Podcast, and we'll be giving you a dose of football memories warmer than a bear hug from Neville Shouthall. From Alfredo Di Stefano to Anthony Le Tallac, from Zico to Zola, strap in and enjoy the nostalgic walk down football lane. In our first episode, I'm joined by Matt, Rich and Torban. Three wonderful human beings with a great knowledge and love for the game. We delve into some current issues today, as well as past memories, as we work on some format points for the rest of the series. I hope you enjoyed spending time with the guys as much as I did. If you enjoy the podcast, please do me a favour. Share this with one person you think might like it too. It will help us continue to make more and better episodes for your enjoyment. We were just talking about Fantasy League.
Yeah, I've not had a good season. You're doing well though, Dan.
Yeah, well, I haven't. I think I've lost to your brother this week.
He's just sneaky. Half the time I can see him. I say, "Oh, you're doing? Oh, we're playing each other." He's like, "Oh, are we? I haven't changed my team in 6 months." And then he goes and beats me, and or he just puts in weird players. That's right, because I was with him on Saturday, and Louis scored twice, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, I'm having a good Fantasy League day." I was like, "Oh, yeah." I didn't know he was playing you. That's a shame. I would have texted you straight away.
Yes. Well, yeah. I think Matt.
And Matt, you're not.
He's overtaken me
Matt's
this week.
not doing it.
Yeah.
Is he? Oh yeah, is he? I thought he was down with me for some reason. Nah, okay. Yeah, well done. Smith boys are up in the top division again.
I think it was this time last season. I think we were in the exact same position, second and third, chasing.
That didn't
this
turn out
exact
well,
same-
did it?
Exact same point.
Really? God.
I think so.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, there's a stat request there, isn't it? You've asked of your own stat there.
Yeah. Everyone.
Get busy.
For Rich that doesn't know, everyone. Matt runs the league, and everyone requests stats from Matt, so Matt has to constantly churn out his fantasy league stats to our WhatsApp group, which he loves.
Well,
obviously.
It's all, the fantasy league is all news to me, boys. As is Torban's brother. I didn't know Torban's had a brother.
There you go.
Learning all sorts on this podcast already.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah, and a sister as well. There you go.
Sister, mate, incredible.
What I've been thinking about recently, and probably been thinking about for the last couple of years, is how much I hate VAR. And we was watching a bit of the League Cup final earlier, and there was a disallowed goal. And it kind of ties in with loads of rule changes that they've been constantly introducing every season, and it feels like somebody just needs to justify their job, or a team of people need to justify their job at FIFA or UEFA or the FA or wherever, by making rule changes that are unnecessary, because they're talking about introducing the blue card. But VAR, it seems to be a lot of what it's doing. I don't see as there being a point to it and how it's improving football as a game, because we're now just discussing VAR mistakes rather than referee mistakes. There's even a programme on Sky Sports dedicated to analysing the VAR decisions, and like Van Dijk scored in normal time, and there was a huge celebration, and it's exciting in a cup final, and then it just stops and the ref has to go over to the screen, and it's just kind of, I'd prefer there to be mistakes, and mistakes are exciting. You think about how many things in football history, like how many moments probably wouldn't have happened, and probably the most obvious is the hand of God and Diego Maradona, and however much it affected us. Like, can you imagine if that
I was okay
wasn't
with
the thing? Oh, of course you were. Yeah. But I can't imagine a world in which that didn't happen, because if that didn't happen, would then one of the greatest goals of all time happened as well? Like, we might not ever have
Well, yeah,
seen
because
that.
there wasn't a handball with that goal.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
No, I think your first point, pal, is spot on. I think when they've invested so much money in it, can they then go and do a U-turn and go, well, it's not working, it's terrible, we'll get rid of it?
No, I don't think they will. And like goal line technology, brilliant. It works really well. The ball crosses the line, he gets a pick, it's instant. But if something's making the game worse, just for the sake of it being correct, like in sport, there's always a bit of luck in sport. No sport is like perfect, and it's kind of part of sport. So yeah.
What do you think of? So in other sports, there's a challenge.
Yeah.
So in American football, the coach is allowed to throw a challenge flag.
Yeah.
And if they get it wrong, they lose a timeout.
Yeah.
But if you remember before tennis went fully digital, as it were, you used to be able to challenge a call, didn't you? And then they would do the slow clap on the whatever it used to be called. Hawkeye, that's it. So what if the manager had 3 challenges, and so you only review decisions that the manager asks for them to be reviewed?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
I mean,
but you would automatically check every goal.
Yeah, I think it's been using too many parts of the game. Like offside is one thing. Like if something's offside, they can analyse it and say, yeah, it's offside or it's onside. But in terms of like a challenge, even when VAR's made a decision and they're looking at it in slow motion, you see them analysing it in the studio and they still don't agree when they're watching it in slow motion, because football isn't that clear cut a game. It is kind of a matter of opinion. We're just getting another person's opinion, basically.
Yeah, I think no one ever accounted when we all thought about we need to get rid of the mistakes. No one really thought about the fact that it wasn't black and white, and not all decisions are black and white, because it's all about intent, and and you can't always see that on slow mo.
And when you slow it down so much, it looks worse anyway than it actually is.
A lot of it is knowing the rule you've got to implement as well. If the rule is not clear on a handball or an offside, then the mistake will come when you're trying to implement that. And stuff like cricket, like Matt was saying with American football, with cricket, a lot of it is instant. So, like what you said earlier, Dan, football's live sport. I don't want to wait 7 minutes for a decision on. I'd rather it was a mistake and it was done live.
Yeah. But cricket again is sort of more quantifiable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it? You can track the ball. Is it going to hit the stumps? Does it hit? It's more black and white.
And they stop between every ball anyway, so there's a natural break in the game.
I think in this day of technology, in this day and age, surely there's something. There's got to be some technology you can have on a pitch, live, to say, right, Torbs is offside by a millimetre. Yeah.
The referee needs to run around with a VR headset, so he can watch the game, but also gets replay.
Yeah, there's got. And
he can see all the lines on the pitch.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, exactly, like a grid on the pitch, and you go, right, he's on, he's off.
Growing up, I always found the debates about bad refereeing decisions enjoyable. After a game, sitting in a pub and going, everyone just moaning, he got that wrong, we've been robbed and things like that. That's part of it.
So why do you hate debates about VAR decisions then?
Well, I just think we're now debating about something that's also making the game worse. So what's the point of it? Like there's games where you're just sitting there for 20 minutes of a game, just waiting for decisions, and then stupid amounts of injury time. And the whole rule change on injury time was because they were trying to stop time wasting, but they haven't implemented that correctly, because they're adding for every tiny little thing. When people aren't time wasting, that's just what happens during a game. That the ball's not always in play, so they've kind of got that wrong as well. It feels like they're just trying to fix things that aren't really broken.
Yeah, completely.
No one's been complaining about that much in football. Everyone enjoys it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and no one's saying how good VAR is, I wouldn't imagine.
And just when those big decisions go against you, though, isn't it? When you the hand of God, or penalties or balls over the line or whatever. That where we've been fans of clubs where you felt hard done by because there's been a decision against you where you've lost, you've been relegated, you've lost a cup, you've lost a match. Big games, big decisions that have kind of gone against you. Where if it had VAR been there, then they wouldn't have been mistakes. I guess it's more to do with the ones where a bit more nuanced and there's a bit of an opinion, like with a tackle, because from one angle it'll look like nothing, from another angle it look terrible. And but goal line. That's
the main thing. I think they should just scrap it for that.
What about offside? What about where there's a fingernail offside? Is that?
I think that's more the rule.
I guess it is black and white.
The rule needs to be clearer, or the rule needs to change.
So what if when they're analysing a tackle, they're only allowed to analyse it at full speed?
Yeah.
You can look at the different angles, but you're not allowed to. But you have to analyse it at the speed. You can replay it, but it's got to always be at normal speed.
So would you have given Van Dijk's goal onside then today?
No, the decision was probably correct. It was just the fact that I just felt it kind of spoiled the drama. It just made me think more about VAR. So it wasn't specifically to that one decision. It was just the fact that you can't really celebrate a goal like you used to because you're just waiting. Because there was quite a long time from the celebration to when they pulled it back.
In some ways, though, do you not get that? You, as a fan, when a goal goes in, you'll get that reflex of a reaction of a celebration, and then a couple of seconds later, like, oh, is it going to be offside or is it? Is it going to be a VAR decision? But then you get the wait, but then you also get this secondary kind of celebration or commiseration, or one side of the stadium's going to cheer, and so does it add another level of? Is it could you say actually it does add another level of drama?
Oh, do you think?
Of interest of kind of?
Oh, for me, I don't know.
Devil's advocate.
Yeah,
I'm not so sure.
Yeah,
but one could argue that.
I just think, well, if it kind of keeps going on like this, and this is how it is, then eventually are we going to stop celebrating goals in the first place until the VAR is checked, because you kind of know it's coming. So there's going to be a big delay in the goal from the celebration, and it kind of ruins the goals a bit. If you're not
I'll tell you what, it ruins it more in the stadium as well, because they don't show the replays. You don't hear the commentary of the VAR like you might do on TV. So they're sort of sat there just sort of looking at each other, waiting to hear the news. So actually it sort of lessens the experience in the stadium, perhaps more so than on TV.
So one thing I asked you all was to bring a subject to the table. And Matt told me that I asked him what it was, and he wouldn't tell me. So he said he wanted a live reaction.
Wow!
So
is that not what everyone's doing?
Well, Torban texted me and told me. I haven't. I don't know what Rich has got, but
I thought it was just a warm up. I haven't bought anything.
Oh no!
No, I have.
Yeah. Oh, good. But I thought I'd start with Matt, as soon as I've got high expectations now.
Well, mine could be slightly linked to what we've just talked about, but I've got in the last sort of 5-6 years, I've really got into the NFL, and I watch American football as much as I watch. So actually, sometimes more than I watch, football. And I've never picked a team.
So in NFL.
In NFL, I don't support a team. There's lots of teams that I like, but often it's because they're linked to like a documentary. So this season they had a documentary following the Miami Dolphins, and I really like the head coach, Mike McDaniels, and they had a kind of a good buzz about them, and I really wanted them to do well, but they weren't the only team I wanted to do well. And but it changes each season which teams I want to do well, right. Which led me to ask the question, is sport more or less enjoyable if you're invested in one particular team? So do you think you would enjoy the Premier League more, Torban, if you didn't support, if you didn't have such a strong support for one team? Because when I watch American football, I just enjoy watching the sport.
That is a good question. Well, personally, when I support Everton, I'd say yes. I would much rather support no team at the moment. But,
Well, Rich, doesn't. I mean, you do support Everton, don't you?
Everton was my top flight team until Swansea did the unthinkable and got there. I mean, supporting two teams that are in a potential relegation battle is not much fun. So, I kind of get what you're saying. I was a huge NFL fan when I was a kid. I was a huge basketball fan as well. Probably, I think my team back in the day was like, I used to like both the LA teams, so the Rams and the Raiders. And then obviously with the franchise element there, like where I think where the Raiders now, they Vegas.
Raiders of Vegas. Yeah. The Rams left LA and then came back.
Yeah. So I've been to see a couple of games. When did I see this year? I saw the Buffalo Bills and the Jacksonville Jaguars at White Hart Lane. Oh, the new Spurs stadium. Yeah. So brilliant. love that. And then
I took my son.
Yeah, great sort of family day out the NFL and a proper event because it's on for so long.
Yeah.
So like when we were there, load of lads there having beers, guys there with their wives, kids, families. A lot of Americans had flown over to watch it. A lot of people who hadn't been to see it before gone to kind of check it out, which was amazing. And we did the year before. A mate of mine, he's got I think it's called an NFL Euro season ticket. So you basically get first dibs on the three games they play there. So we went to Wembley last year and watched. Was that the Broncos? Yeah, Broncos and the Jags. And that was unbelievable. I think that was the biggest crowd they've had in Europe, the NFL. It was like 92,000 at Wembley. Proper amazing show. So, yeah, I kind of get what you're saying there. I can sit down and watch most sports, even if I haven't got a team, and enjoy it. There's very few sports I can't not enjoy for whatever element of it. You can normally find something that's a bit of a hook or something you can get a bit invested in.
Good example of that is probably something like the Olympics, isn't it? Where I'll happily sit and watch, I don't know, shooting or kayaking or whatever it is, and get really into it for that moment, and not have. Well, I guess you'll be supporting the British, the British Olympians. But yeah, I don't know. I think in answer to your question, Matt, I'd say it'd be a no, because I think you get that. The passion kind of stays with you. Even during the week, you'll be kind of thinking about the game that your team are playing at the weekend, whether you win or lose. That kind of visceral, kind of real. You feel it, as opposed to if you're just watching it from without that kind of added, I don't know, level of passion and history and I don't know, knowing that your mates, are a fan of one team and you're a fan of just that kind of the added level of, I don't know, the banter or whatever.
The tribalness.
Yeah, exactly. That's the word. You wouldn't have all of that.
Yeah.
One person it made me think of is our mutual friend Jez, who's a Wycombe Wanderers fan, and doesn't have a top flight team. He just supports Wycombe Wanderers, and he's always like well into top flight football. Like he'll always be on the WhatsApps, getting really excited about games like Champions League games and things like that. Like, are you watching this? So he obviously still has a huge enjoyment from it, even though he doesn't support a top flight club. So I think people do, but I think it's just different, isn't it? How you feel when you're watching your own team, watching those type of games. But yeah,
I don't think it means. I think you can still watch. If I don't know, let's say it's Chelsea versus Brighton or something, so it's right now it's of neither importance, either end of the table so much. But I can still sit down and, even though I'm a fan of Everton, I can still watch that match and still get enjoyment from it. But would I get sort of more enjoyment if I wasn't a fan of a team already and I could sort of really appreciate it at a different level? I don't know, maybe.
I always used to support New York Jets. I think Dad bought me a New York Jet jumper once. Never done well in anything.
We went to the States, I think it was in 2012, so I watched them at Meadowlands against the Dolphins.
Oh, really?
And that's, I think it was like -5. Because all the fans are merged together. There's no home and away end.
No.
In it, so it's
nice, isn't it?
It's quite a unique experience, I think, seeing that. And it's, I think with the NFL particularly, Matt, it's like a massive production, isn't it? It's just like, Dan Smith, University of Wycombe, £200 running back, and like they clap everyone on. It's unbelievable. unbelievable in terms of like the product and what goes into the day.
Yeah.
Have you seen Key and Peele? They do a comedy sketch where they're doing all like college football introductions, and they've made up silly names, and they get sillier and sillier. And I sent it to Dan the other day because it's final proof.
I forwarded it on to Torban.
Yeah.
His
Made me
name
chuckle.
might actually be the most boring Smith name because the last player after all these weird and wonderful names that they've made up is Dan Smith, Idaho.
My name was the punchline, basically.
Yeah.
So Torban, you sent me your discussion point today.
Ooh.
I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, I did. I didn't know whether I was going to be too off piece, and it probably is. It's probably a little bit
Skiing
self-indulgent.
question.
Oh, very good. So I'm named after a guy called Torban Ulrich, who died only a few weeks ago, aged 95, and he was a tennis player in the 50s, 60s, 70s. And I asked my dad once why he named me after him, and he said that he epitomised a rebellious nature, which I quite liked, and he was cool with it. Apparently, obviously shoes far too big for me to fill. I haven't quite made legendary status like that, but he had. So I've gone online and had a look at who he was, and he wasn't particularly. He wasn't a great tennis player. He only reached the fourth round as singles in the French and US and Wimbledon. He did reach semi-final in Wimbledon as a doubles player, but he had long. He looked like a hippie, and he just didn't look really like a sportsman. He sometimes had it in a ponytail, and he's most famous, probably more so, for being the father of the Metallica drummer Lars Ulrich.
No way.
Yeah. So but in his he was just a character, and so he wasn't winning title after title, but he obviously caught my dad's eye a million years ago, and he went on to become a writer, a jazz musician, a filmmaker, an artist, and he was quite an interesting guy, and it just made me think that characters in sport was kind of the main sort of punchline that I was kind of thinking about with. A topic to discuss is that I don't know whether people of a certain era will look back at another era and think, oh, it was much better then, or I just feel like, I don't know, watching the Premier League nowadays just feels so sort of sanitized, polished, so professional, I suppose, that you don't get the likes of kind of Vinnie Jones and perhaps like I don't know, Cantona or Robbie Savage or Paul Merson or sort of those players from the 90s that we remember watching who were just a bit different and a bit interesting, and so would just do some. Well, all of those guys did some pretty crazy things. And they just played, the football in a different era. But I don't know. I just feel like nowadays, do we have less characters in sport just because it's become so much more professional and more sanitized and more, I don't know, more pressure, so people are more focused. That was my discussion point.
Definitely in football. Oh
yeah.
And I would say it's because it's become so professional now. Because when you see more amateur games, you still get so many more characters. Like when you're watching the Olympics, like they do the interviews afterwards, and they seem so strange, the interviews, because you're not used to them speaking in that way because they're not media trained.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say probably the closest thing in football now is probably Jack Grealish. I'd say to a character like we used to have, and I mean, he was probably pretty.
Do you reckon we'd ever get another? Would there ever be another Gaza, for example? Do you reckon there'd ever be that sort of that kind of crazy kind of player who could?
I think Gaza was a one-off in any era, to be honest.
I'm also. I don't think someone who treated or didn't treat their body in the optimal sporting way, I don't think they would succeed as much natural skill as they could have. They wouldn't be able to keep up now. Like Gaza would struggle to keep up, wouldn't he, with the fitness side of stuff?
Yeah. But
I think they're trying to create characters by having so many documentaries. I've just finished watching the the first half of the second series of Break Point. Speaking of tennis, and I think they did those kind of things, and the golf one, was it Full Swing, and Drive to Survive. Yeah. They kind of do a good job of kind of showing you the other side, because on the kind of the face side of sports, you don't see the characters, but there's still characters there. But you have to watch the documentaries now to actually see the characters
that's a good point.
behind the sport, and then you do see, find some funny characters in different places, don't you?
Yeah, it's such a business now, isn't it? The business element of it, where you just lose sponsors left, right, and centre if you're anything other than, talking the talk and walking the line that you have to be seen to be doing these days. Because all of your teams that you boys support would probably have 4 or 5 Mavericks from the 90s in it. It'd have a hard man, it'd have a hard drinker, it'd have the skillful winger, it'd have the centre forward who's knocking in 25 goals. That just doesn't happen anywhere. I mean, from a Swansea point of view, I think the last Maverick we would probably have would have been Lee Trundle, who just came into the game late. None of it was over-coached out with him in an academy anywhere. Turns pro at 22. So every time he's going out, he's just got to enjoy himself and entertain the fans. Who does that these days?
I wanted to ask the question: has skill died in football? And it was actually, I started thinking about this after, surprisingly, something Michael Owen said, who's someone it's probably the only time I've agreed with anything Michael Owen said. And he was saying you don't need to be as good at football now to be a top flight footballer as you did in his day. You just need the physical attributes to be a Premiership football player. And I kind of thought he's got a point, because you look at, I think outside of the kind of top teams, sort of the top 5, top 6 teams, the players and the attributes, they're very samey, and you don't really have any exciting players outside of the top 6. And we used to have all these players in the lesser teams like Di Canio, Espria, JJ Okocha, Paolo One-Shop, who could just do the most amazing skill. Lee Trundle, like you said, they could do these skilled tricks. They could run through players, and the way football clubs kind of are built now is all about passing, and the teams like Bournemouth and that they can stay in the Premier League and do well by just being well drilled and playing a certain way. And Chelsea probably summed it up for me a bit, because they've spent all this money on all this young talent, and they all seem to be this type of player who are incredibly fast, incredibly strong. But when you watch them, I don't feel they look like they kind of have a natural gift of playing football. Like, none of them are doing anything where I'm kind of going, wow, what was that? And these are the most expensive players in the world that they put together. And so the amount of times they're kind of through on goal and they don't have that natural killer instinct of scoring a goal. And I think that's what Michael Owen was touching on a lot, that the reason he was so good at football was because he had that kind of natural ability to score goals. It didn't matter about his physical attributes.
Yeah, I think the academy system, I coached in it just before it kind of got sort of the way it is now. And my next door neighbour, parents in Swansea, he was a good footballer, young lad. His dad had played in Man United reserves. He played in the old NSL in America with some crazy players he played with, and his boy was playing for Swansea. And he was kind of 14, 15. He'd been there since he was about 9. And he'd sort of come out of school on a Friday. He'd have his DVD from the week before. He'd be tasked with right, you got a 20 passes in the final third in the first half. Some crazy stat. And it got to 16, he just didn't play for a year. He got released. I think that sometimes the enjoyment gets coached out of you because of a statistic, or like you say, you've got to be an athlete, or he was always the best player I saw playing in that Swansea team, and you're thinking he would probably make it. But yeah, I think do you enjoy it as much now? I don't know. It's so much money in the game. You're told to play a certain way. No one plays long ball. No one's direct. No one.
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, is it a case of that these players do have that ability and skill and flair, but it's coached out of them? They're not allowed to.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think how can you have a 16-year-old lad and go, you've got like you got to cover a certain amount of ground in a game. You've got to do this, that, and that. Your thoughts are all on that, aren't they? So at the top level, it must be even crazier in terms of what you've got to execute in terms of like a game plan from a manager.
Is it more to do with? Do you reckon it'd be more to do with sort of fear of making a mistake?
Yeah.
So
your stats.
Players don't take a player on. They'd rather make a pass because their Opta stats.
Yeah, completely
better.
As
opposed to trying to go for a dribble and then losing it. Whereas 1 in 3 dribbles might end up in the goal. You won't see those dribbles anymore because they're turning around and sort of passing it inside or knocking it back. And
completely.
Just I think fear of making a mistake.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it.
Like a Paul Gascoigne, someone managing someone like Paul Gascoigne would have just said, "Do what you want." I'd imagine. They wouldn't have been trying to fit him in, but a manager wouldn't say that to a player now. It'd probably be take a touch and pass it.
Yeah. What's your attributes? What's your game? What are you all about? When are you at your best? Go and play.
Yes, but I feel like we're missing, as well as like Torban said, missing the personalities. We're missing these kind of maverick players in the game that we used to have.
Well, I guess the two are kind of the same almost, aren't they? That kind of creative flair, that kind of slight madness. The character, somebody who's a bit more sort of, I don't know, confident in themselves, or that single-mindedness or whatever. That's just coached out of them, or just too much pressure. They just choose a safe option rather than playing a certain way, or the manager just doesn't want to take the risk because they're under too much pressure. So they say, no, just play a certain way.
I kind of disagree.
Oh, really? Go on then.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of skill, and these football players, like, you can't say that what Kevin De Bruyne can do passing a ball is not highly skilled at what he's doing. The fact that he can pass it on a dime to someone who's running at 15 miles an hour, and to land it on the right foot at the right, and whilst he's like probably not even shaped up to like things like, and I wonder if we've just become accustomed to a higher level of general football, that actually everyone is skillful. They might not, the skill is maybe not shown in the same way, but maybe you don't have quite the standout players. I mean, even the defenders can do step overs and Cruyff turns and everything nowadays, which back in the old days, the defenders, they had one job. Whereas now they don't. They start the attack. They have to be able to. Even the goalkeepers have to be able to pass now. So like the goalkeepers are way more skillful than ever in history. Are you telling me Lionel Messi is not one of the most skillful players that's ever lived? He still plays now.
Yeah. No, if not.
I think maybe it's more that we're. Yeah, I agree that that coaching has become so refined. That you're so looking to find the way to win, and that way to win in team sport is generally working better as a team and how to work well as a team, and that does mean that flary stuff maybe but you still see plenty of flair in there. But I just think I don't think you can say that players are less skillful. I think players are all as skillful as probably the most skillful players from the past. They're just all at that level, but they're showing in.
I probably meant flair more than I did skill. It's probably the wrong word. Flair was more what I meant. But and is it a case if we don't see this flair? And then the main thing is image in my mind is a player running through a whole team. That you used to see, like in highlights, there would be so many highlights during a season of one of the goals of the season where he's run through a load of players, and I can't remember rarely seeing players doing that these days. And is it because they're told not to, or is it because the defenders are so much better than they used to be that you can't do it?
Probably a bit of it.
Yeah, a bit of both, I reckon.
Yeah, because you're coached to play the percentages, right? So you've got a greater percentage of having a successful attack if you're passing to a teammate who's freer than you trying to take it on 3 people. I just say there's skill in that as well, like it's just a different
should
type
they
of skill.
should like the Championship Div 1, Div 2 defenders and keepers still play like that? Still try and play out from the back?
No.
Clearly not as good.
Definitely, I've watched a bit of League One, and they do try and do it, and it's not. I don't think they should do it as often as they try and do it. It can be quite frustrating to watch when they're all trying to do what they do on the top flat.
So the skill levels are still good at the very top.
Get out there, just get out there.
Thump it long.
Yeah, hit the big lad.
Well, I don't know if we talked about it, Dan, but I did tick off quite a good bucket list thing. Me and Dan Warner in January. I went to the San Siro. So ever since I was a kid, so we're all of the same age. So before Sky and what have you came on board and bought the rights to every football and Amazon and BT, it was Channel 4, wasn't it, on a Sunday afternoon?
Yeah.
So Gazzetta. Yeah, what was the song? That was the intro was my ringtone for many years. Yeah, it was that right. Yeah, exactly that. And so managed to get over there with Dan Warner and good bucket list tick off. And was very, very surprised by the sort of stadium and how good the football was. How good Milan was. But yeah, I just my topic would probably be 90s Italian football. All the few English players that went over there. And I'll give you a little quiz question. I know we haven't got a quiz question, but I'll give you a little quiz question. Can you name the club that supplied the most players to the England Italian 90 squad?
Bari.
No.
It's gone big on David Platt.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Wasn't he?
Rangers.
Correct, Matt Smith.
Oh, well done.
Can you name the players for a bonus point?
Mark Haitley.
I said Mark Haitley. I don't think it was Mark Haitley.
Chris Woods.
Chris Woods, yeah, you had to get that one. You would have been jettisoned from the podcast if you didn't get that one.
Gaza wasn't at Rangers in 90, was he?
No.
10 years later, maybe.
90.
Terry Butcher?
Yes. Correct, Torbs.
Well done, Torbs. Come on, Matt, you guessed Rangers. Who are you thinking of?
Well, I just know that because of the English club ban in Europe, that a lot of the English players were playing for Rangers at the time.
That's great knowledge.
But
and Italian teams as well.
Yeah.
That came after Italia 90, didn't it?
Yeah.
Off the back of Italia 90.
I guess it was in terms of kind of going... Oh, go on. Carry on going with your guessing.
How many more, Rich?
I think it was 2.
2 more.
I'll give it. One was a winger. Played for your Premier League team as well, or Division 1 team, or Division 1 team was it as it was then?
Played for United.
Oh God, you're not Everton, are you? I keep thinking you're Everton. No, for your
yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Ball.
No.
Too late. Not Trevor Francis.
Trevor something.
Trevor Sinclair.
Trevor
Stephen Torbs. You got it. Trevor Sinclair.
That came a bit later. Yeah. Stephen. Oh, wow. Well, who was the other one?
Oh God, was it Gary Stephen? I think off the top of my head, I can't remember.
The Stevens.
Oh, yeah.
Might be the other Stevens, yeah. But no, it was my topic was kind of 90s Italian football and going to visit that iconic stadium. So it was.
What match did you see?
We watched them play against Roma. So the day after Mourinho got the sack, he was in the stands because he had a touchline ban.
Oh, really? Recently?
Yeah. It was like second week in Jan, I think it was, third week in Jan. But it was seeing that iconic stadium from when you were a kid. Like you say, it was just not, watching that at night. I think it was like an 8:45 kickoff on a Sunday. So kind of the build up to it, going up to it. There's no concourse in the ground. I don't know if you've been there. So it's a hell of a stadium. There's no concourse in the ground. So it's literally
I've seen it from the outside, but never went in.
Yeah, it's like walking up into an NCP car park. Just up a flight of stairs and you're into it, so you can't walk around anywhere. And there was some incredible stats with the ground. They make a loss every time they play at the San Siro because they don't really? Sell they don't sell any food and drink inside the ground. So if you want a burger or a pint, there's like what I would call like a popcorn seller. So literally they must sell like a couple of hundred drinks because no one's sort of buying anything off them. So yeah, it was just the experience of kind of going to that stadium that probably that was an iconic stadium when I was a kid. Wembley was, you've got like 3 or 4 iconic stadiums, and it was going to sort of see that and just it living up to the expectation of what you thought it was going to be like. So
did it live up to it?
When
you walked down the stadium,
amazing atmosphere.
I like hearing that it did live up to the expectation. Cause
and
things don't always, do they?
No, we kind of they've got like so we did a stadium tour the day before, so that was quite incredible. Like walking through the stadium, which was bonkers. The worst set of changing rooms I think I've ever been in. Terrible for a pro club. It was incredible. And there was a football museum there as well. They did like had loads of iconic shirts of players that have played at the San Siro. They had an Italian national team exhibition on as well. So it was amazing to kind of see all of that history and all the sort of players we grew up watching. It's like Batistuta shirts, Romario shirts, all the people that have kind of played in that ground. But yeah, it was kind of like one of those sort of surreal things where probably you boys have been to Wembley or watched a few big games at a few big stadiums and kind of going, yeah, I'm here, sort of, incredible atmosphere all the way through. As we were walking out, the sort of 3,000 ultras were walking out behind us, all dressed in black. It was, it was a really good experience, and yeah, good game to watch as well. 3-1, some good players on show. But yeah, it kind of like harking back to our days of Baresi, Maldini, all of those greats, Van Basten, Hullet. So yeah, it was a good trip. So yeah, my topic was 90s Italian football. Discuss.
It was good. I even had Champman Italia. That was my Champman Italia '98 or something like that. And I played that for a few years instead of Champman, the normal one. That was so you got to know the players even more. Yeah, all of the players playing that, and then obviously watching it on Channel 4 and kicking off as well. That you talk about '90s Italian football, well, that Italian '90 was the World Cup for all of us, wasn't it? I mean, it was just. It doesn't it doesn't get any better than that. I think it just everything about it. The soundtrack. The fact that just all the drama, the players, just the look of it. It was even kind of glossy TV, wasn't it?
Yeah. And the stadium has
for Qatar.
Or not like the Vuvuzelas ruining the South Africa one. Oh my God.
Yeah, but it was one of those stadiums where the atmosphere was brilliant from start to finish, and the stadium hadn't changed since the 90s. I don't think they'd done anything to it since 1990.
Did it feel rickety? Did it feel like you go to go to Wembley nowadays, and it feels so sort of top notch. Did it feel? Or did that add to its charm?
I think you've spot on, pal. That exactly added to its charm. It's sort of like the corners of it all kind of rounded off in the top of the stadium, pretty open in terms of the ground itself. So yeah, I think it probably did. I think like the Spurs stadium, Matt, was brilliant for the NFL, but like brand new, everything's like sparkly. Yeah, and it was.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing stadium. I think they've done a great job.
Yeah, so I think
I haven't been to that yet.
Yeah, it's
What's
a good
the capacity there, Spurs Stadium?
Is it 60 odd?
Big.
Yeah,
60
odd, I think. Yeah.
What about the San Siro? Is that sort of 40, 50, or is it like 70, 80?
I think it's about 60, 70 maybe. I don't know for sure.
You weren't listening on the tour, Rich.
No, I didn't have the translating button on the headphones for that, Dan. Couldn't understand a word that was going on, but I think that's an iconic stadium, and to get around it before, but I don't think they've actually agreed on where they're going to go. So AC and Inter have got to agree on where the site is going to be and how that's going to kind of work in terms of the dynamics and the financials. So I don't think they've got anywhere to. It's quite kind of out of towny, the San Siro, in terms of a stadium and getting there. So yeah, I don't even think they've got a site for the next round.
So they're not just going to redevelop on that site then?
No, I'm pretty sure they're not. Yeah, and I think they're basically working on, who gets what from the deal and who's putting in what and what have you. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. My sort of thought was I've got to go before they demolish it and go somewhere else, but they could likely. I didn't realise there's so many teams in and around Milan. So there's like 2 or 3 other teams that are quite close by. I think like Monza might be one of them. Empoli might be another one. There's 1 or 2 that are pretty close by. But you couldn't imagine one of those ground sharing with someone who's got 20,000 capacity stadium or 25,000.
No.
It's not going to work for either of those 2 teams.
Yeah. I think Italy in the 90s is one of the greatest eras of football. I think we all watched that Football Italia, and there's a podcast I recommend you listen to called Totally Galazzo. Which I started listening to it. Have you? And I mean, one of the best things is the intro music is the Galazzo music.
Have you listened to the quick? Have you listened to the Quickly Kevin with James Richardson?
James Richardson, yeah.
On how he got the job, how it was unbelievable. Yeah. Everything was done on a budget.
It's basically, but wasn't he done by chance that he just
Italian girlfriend, didn't he?
Yeah, and he basically spoke Italian, and she was going over there, and he said the reason they did the coffee in the Gazzetta dello Sport on the Piazza was because they didn't have any money. So there was no like clever thinking about it. It was just like, I'll just talk on. It's free. I'll buy a paper. It's like cost me a couple of quid. And I'll sit here and just talk about it. Yeah, and he was saying like a lot of the time they wouldn't have any runners there, so he'd have to they'd record the show, and he'd have to take the video back on a flight to London for them to edit and produce what he needed to do. So yeah, it was an amazing story. Because you're thinking like Ray Wilkins, Kenneth Wolstenholme, there's some Joe Jordan. There's some pretty big names in terms of support. Commentators and what have you. So yeah, it's well worth a listen. His story is unbelievable.
Oh, incredible! Yeah, but that podcast, the stories they have on there are amazing.
And you're a bit Sampdoria tonight, Dan.
Yeah, I got the Sampdoria jumper on. Yeah.
Yes.
Available to buy in.
Is there any co-presenter discounts knocking about? Is there discount codes for co-presenters?
Oh yeah. I custom made one for Torban.
Freebie for me. Yeah, I haven't got it on though. I should have done.
I sent him one. I made him an Everton one.
Nice.
You're allowed to actually say the name of your company, then.
Yeah. Don't worry.
You shied away from saying.
Sorry, Sterling Sports. Yeah, I've got the logo there. So one feature I mentioned earlier that I thought I'd do is kind of doing either like a best 11 or who would you pick out of these 3, and the kind of one that was most obvious to me that probably we've talked about 1,000 times is who was better, or put these in order 1, 2, and 3: Gerrard, Lampard, and Scholes. And for me, it's number 1 Paul Scholes, number 2 Gerrard, number 3 Lampard. And I know I'm a United fan, and you're probably saying it's a bit biased, but I've always seen Scholes as the best footballer out of the 3 of them, and United won so many titles during the 90s that Scholes was dictating the tempo and the style of play that enabled us to
keeled over that
he didn't agree. Doesn't agree.
That revelation.
I threw my phone at
Could not believe it.
Wrong.
I love Steven Gerrard.
Disgusted with it.
I was still waiting for you to say a 4th player, like any Everton player, but you
any Everton player.
Just could be. Yeah. There's so many that you could choose from. So.
But yeah, and I think
if you're free, that's right.
If Scholes was, say, Spanish, he'd be rated as highly as Xavi and Iniesta, who are rated as potentially the 2 greatest Spanish players of all time. And I think other countries, when they look, would probably rate Scholes higher than them on a lot of levels. And I think English football fans probably rate Gerrard and Lampard higher because that's the style of football they prefer, and it's that kind of mentality they have, especially Gerrard, of like the kind of picking the team up and leading from the front, and just picking the ball up and winning games by like pure grit and determination, whereas Scholes was winning games for United in a much more subtle way. But he did score a lot of long range goals as well, just like Gerrard and Lampard did. So yeah, where would you rate them? 1, 2, 3, Matt?
I mean, they're all great. I don't.
As the other United fan, do you agree with me on Scholes?
I mean, I don't find it easy to separate them. They were all excellent players. They all had slightly different skill set and slightly different things that they brought to the team, and I think they all equally brought an incredibly high level to all the teams they played. So
you're not going to play the game?
I don't want to offend any of them.
This has gone down well. I don't think they're listening.
You never know.
No, I don't know. Like, yeah, Scholes was great, but then was he better than Gerrard? I don't know.
What's the statistic, Dan, on their trophy hauls?
Do you know what? I'm just googling that because that's what I was going
to use. Scholes will have.
I mean, trophy hauls will be.
Yeah, Scholes will have the most. And
you kind of Lampard's the highest scorer in the Premier League from midfield. Is that right? He's still 200 or something. Well, no, it wouldn't be 200, would it? Well, actually, maybe it's not a million miles off.
No, not 200. But I think he's in the 100 club. But yeah, I mean, would United have been as good if they had Gerrard instead of Scholes?
Yes.
It's so difficult to, so my first thought was, well, who's scored the most goals, who's got the most assists, but it's not just about that, is it? Because especially when you look at Liverpool for a lot, a lot of those they played during a similar time period, but United for most of that were a lot better than, or have more titles. Chelsea probably not a million miles off. Obviously Liverpool did well in the cups and things, but Scholes was playing around a better team. But then, would that mean that there was other players, other midfielders that Scholes played with that were scoring more goals, whereas Lampard and Gerrard would probably score the greater percentage or ratio of goals from midfield, whereas in the United they would get goals from more players. So yeah, stats wise it's difficult. Trophy, so it's kind of unfair because United were head and shoulders for so many years. So it's really difficult to sort of how do you quantify it?
It's hard.
Yeah, so almost have to just go on gut
it's
feel.
Because I often see people not would have Scholes as third in that, and quite easily people dismiss Scholes. I see quite a lot. They'll be like, oh yeah, obviously Scholes third, and it's and then choosing it's hard to choose between Gerrard and Lampard.
Did Scholes drive Man United forward as far as Gerrard and Lampard did for their clubs?
At times, he definitely did. Especially Ferguson brought him back out of retirement to help us win a few more league titles. And I don't think we would have won if he hadn't brought Scholes back out of retirement. It's the way he could dictate a game. He controlled it from the middle and dictated the play, the same as Xavi and Iniesta did for Barcelona in Spain. They keep that pace going. They keep the passes going, and later in his career, he did it with Carrick.
So do you think that United would have won less with Gerrard instead of Scholes, or with Lampard instead of Scholes?
Yeah, definitely in that later era when the team wasn't as good as the 90s. That late 90s team, I think, yeah, they would have won just the same with either of them. But when the team wasn't as good in Ferguson's later parts...
Well, you don't think Gerrard would have had an equally strong impact as Scholes?
Well, he didn't win any league titles with Liverpool, so...
No, but he didn't have the players around him that...
No, but nor did Scholes in that later time. I think if Scholes had gone to Liverpool, Liverpool would have a better chance of winning the league title with Scholes instead of Gerrard.
Really?
Yeah. Because
Well,
he would have had them playing a better style of football.
But were Man United ever reliant upon Scholes as much as the other two?
Not as much, no.
No.
Not as much.
So with that reliance comes a hell of a lot of pressure from a lot of angles.
Yeah.
In terms of what they had to handle and dragging their teams forward at times, I guess.
Yeah. So, I mean, before this conversation, where would you have put them, Rich? And,
well, I've just got the Tipex out, Dan, at least 3 times there while you're all talking. Before I probably would have gone Scholes, Gerrard, Lampard, but I'm not so sure. Yeah, I think a lot of it is what team you're playing in and what players you've got around you to sort of complement how you play and you know what job you need to do. But yeah, I mean, Torb's stat with Lampard's the top scorer from midfield. That's an unbelievable stat, isn't it, for some of the midfielders that have played in that top flight? Who's got the better all-round game?
Look at it from England point of view. When
I was just about to say, Scholes wasn't able to drag England through to
yeah, that's what I mean. Has he got the
never
character?
Given the opportunity for England. Because we always played Gerrard and Lampard, and we often played Scholes on like the left wing.
Right,
like
so
that must built that England team around Scholes.
That must mean they're better, mate. So they come to the top of my list now. They're moving up.
If Sven-Göran Eriksson thought that they were more worthy of the central role,
who are we to argue with, Sven?
Well,
no, I think probably different games.
Sven was having us play 4-4-2.
So I think I would probably go Scholes and I don't know, Gerrard closely behind him than Lampard, but I've got no basis for that really, other than
it doesn't matter. This is just a matter of opinion.
Yeah, I go those 3 in that order.
None of us are right.
No, hard to quantify that one. I think with the quality and the qualities they've got.
The main reason I've thought about it a lot because I always feel like people underrate Scholes, especially when comparing him to those 3. Mainly, I think probably mainly because he was in England terms they were rated ahead of him by most managers.
And I'd say
probably why people don't view him that.
And I reckon a lot is because of his personality as well, probably.
Yeah.
So he's not in the limelight, quiet guy, doesn't like the limelight. Whereas I'm not saying Gerrard and Lampard did, but they were certainly probably captains for both of those teams, weren't they, at various times that they played for? So yeah, maybe get more plaudits because of that as well.
Yeah, you could say. But yeah, I mean, I do often look back on that England era, like 2002 World Cup, and thinking we should have done, with the team we had, we should have done a lot better. And a lot of it was that midfield and how we were just trying to fit all the best players into this team when it didn't make a team, and the manager needed to have the bravery to drop 1 or 2 of those 3 to make a better team, and basically base the whole team around one of those players, no matter which one of them it was. If we'd have built a whole team around the strength of Gerrard or Lampard or Scholes, then the team would have been better than just trying to play them all in a line, basically. So I think we're coming to the end. I don't know if there's anything else anyone had to add to the proceedings before I wrap it up.
I didn't give my order of what I said.
Yeah,
Lampard.
I'd like to hear Torban's order as well, please.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I thought you were kind of abstaining like Matt was.
No, I'll chip in. Look, goals win matches, and Lampard scored more than the other guys, so I'd put him at the top, and then I'd probably go Steven Gerrard for being, much more of an obvious influence on matches. You look at the comeback in Istanbul and all that, and then Scholes third. Although it's just an impossible one to properly quantify. But that'd be I'll go Lampard, Gerrard, goals.
Nice.
Well, maybe I should put Gerrard top because no one else has.
There you go.
Thanks for listening to The Hand of Pod. Please subscribe, review and share the pod, and we will love you for it.